was just kicked out my video, so I'm going to have to start all over. I didn't say anything about Melchizedek in my last video. The whole thing is a lot deeper than what we think. I said in my last video we don't have very much information. Jesus never mentioned Melchizedek. Never said, well, I am a priest according to Melchizedek. Of course, the Psalm 110 said that, but he never confirmed it or anything. And Paul never mentioned Melchizedek, so did Peter and John never mentioned Melchizedek. And so that's kind of really, really odd for me. Why did they not mention Melchizedek? Why did they not refer to Jesus as the Melchizedek? Okay, don't know. But we have a reference to this person that is coming, right, in the order of Melchizedek, that is king and priest. Now, according to the Moses order, or the order of the Levites, the law, that cannot happen. The priests were priests because they were descendants of Levite, Levitical descendants. And there was no exception. It was biology. You cannot be a priest without the genealogy. So you had to be a descendant, of Aaron and his house. But according to that, there cannot be a king and a priest at the same time. A priest can never be a king. Why? Because the kingly line of Messiah came out of Judah. And I think I did talk about that before. But I wanted to make that very, very clear. So this priesthood had to change to something else. And that's why Jesus is priest, a higher priest, a priest from the beginning of the order of Melchizedek. From the beginning, he was put there as a priest. From the beginning, he was the one that was supposed to come offering his own sacrifice for everybody's sin. We see that also in Zechariah 6, which I forgot to mention. And should the Jews today know that, they should know Zechariah. Remember, people always scream, oh, there has to be a third temple. Well, who is going to build the third temple? Who is going to be building the true temple of God? Now, the Jews today know that only Messiah can build the true temple of God. Now, what are they doing today with preparing things and screaming, oh, we need to build? It's because they're doing the same mistake that David made. God told him, a descendant of yours will build the temple. And David thought, oh, that was Solomon. And so he prepared all the things for the temple. And he didn't understand, and you can find that actually in the Old Testament, where God told him that a descendant of you will build the temple, not Solomon. They just thought so. They made a mistake. You see, even people like David, who had the Holy Spirit sometimes, not very often, made mistakes. Even Nathan, the prophet, made mistakes because he didn't get it either. And then Zechariah, when they built the second temple, were in the process of building the second temple, again was told that only the branch will build the temple, the true temple of God. And he didn't get it either. But that's when God said it. And the Jews today understand that, at least most of them, the learned ones. They know that only Messiah can build the temple. So, okay, they're preparing everything so when Messiah gets here, they can build it. But they're still not getting it. People, what is the true temple of God? We see that in Paul, Ephesians 2. I say that so often, right? It's the church. We are the church. I mean, the temple is built with living stones, which is every believer in Messiah. Messiah is the cornerstone, and you can go there, Ephesians 2, and see that. And the foundation are the apostles and the prophets. And the whole building is built with living stones. That is the true temple of God. Not a stone temple. And here Zechariah was giving, this prophecy. And did he understand it? No, because they continued to build the temple anyways. So where do we read that? In Zechariah 6:12. Here is a man whose name is Branch. Do you know who the branch is? Okay, you should know who the branch is. He was mentioned in other parts of the Old Testament. And he will branch out from his place and build the temple of the Lord. Okay? He will build the temple of the Lord. The true temple. Not the first, not the second, not the third. One. Only one true temple. It is he who will build the temple of the Lord, and he will be clothed with majesty and will sit and rule on his throne. So he will be a king, and he will be a priest on his throne. That should have opened the eyes of Zechariah, but really it didn't. Okay? So, and there will be harmony between the two. And that was the prophecy. Again, how can that be? If you know a little bit about Jewish history, again, king comes from David, Judah. Priest comes from Levites or Aaron. So how in the world can this person be king and priest? There has to be either a different kingly line or a different priestly line. And that's what we actually then find in Hebrews explained. That this king that's coming is not a priest according to the Levites. And that's what I've read in my last video. One has to end in order for the other to start. Both cannot exist, both will not exist. And so the Levitical priesthood had to stop and will stop and is stopped and is gone. Okay? They cannot find more Levites, Cohen, I think they call him today Cohen, right? Everybody with the name Cohen, whatever. They think they can trace it back biologically to the Levites, which I don't think they can. Okay? I don't think they can. Even if they can, what does it matter? We know in the Old Testament, again from Zechariah, right here, also from Psalms, even though it's not very much now, hey, that we are looking for a king according, or a priest according to the order of Melchizedek. So then we have to understand, who is this Melchizedek? The king of righteousness, the king of peace, the king from Salem. You understand? Salem belongs to the king. The promised land really belongs to the king. The Jews, or the Hebrews, the Israelites, had to be stewards of that land. Stewards, and they didn't do a good job. And so God divorced them. They lost the land, period. And we need to understand that today. If we don't, we are going to be misled. It's simple. Bottom line. The priesthood of Levite is gone. The true descendant of Abraham, the Messiah, from the line of Judah and David, has come. We don't need to look for another one. Matter of fact, the Essenes knew, these true priests of light, they knew that Jesus, the Messiah, would come during their time. They believed 32. I think they believed that he would die, of course, around 32. So they knew in those days, at least the ones that were awake, that Messiah had come. And the Jews rejected it, most of them. Why? Because they followed the Pharisees, the scribes, and the false priests. The corrupt priesthood. That's why the priests that were righteous left and went to Essene. We know John, a descendant or a son of a priest, was preaching around there. He left Jerusalem because of the corruptness of the system. And they continued, they misled the people. They continued to follow false messiahs, several of them that came after Jesus. But finally God had enough and destroyed the temple because he wanted to show them and tell them, listen, this is the end. These sacrifices are not needed anymore because we are now in a new covenant. And the Jews, the followers, the scribes, the Pharisees, when they were kicked out of the land and were persecuted, they tried very hard to establish or keep their religion going. Not the religion of Moses, because they couldn't do it anymore. They could not sacrifice. They couldn't keep 75% of the law anymore. Even today they can't. 75% are pertaining to the sacrifices and the temple. They can't do it. So they came up with their own system, their own way of being saved through works. The works. Oh, who can be the best? Who can keep the law the best? And they made up all kinds of, continued to make up all kinds of regulations. They followed the wrong leaders. They were getting stuck more and more, deeper in darkness. And then people wonder why the Jews are not following Jesus. Why can they not follow? It's not because God blinded them. God blinded them in truth, in part, but not in all. They did it to themselves by rejecting Messiah, by rejecting Messiah still today. So they lost their birthright, really, like Esau. They lost their birthright. Why? Because God is interested in true believers. He's not interested in people that want to go after false gods, like Esau did. And that's what we have today. Jesus came as the true high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Now, do people know that? Even the Christians know. Do the Jews even know about Melchizedek? Is he being preached? Do they understand who Melchizedek is? Obviously not, because they're hiding it. Why? Because they don't want to give up their priesthood. You see? They want to be in charge. They want to be in control. They don't want to give control to God. Oh, yeah, they're saying, oh, we're following Hashem. We're following, God and his instructions. But do they know about Melchizedek and that the Messiah is coming in the order of Melchizedek, that he is going to be the true descendant of David and this Melchizedek? See, Melchizedek was never given to the person because of bloodline. You would think, Isaac, bloodline of Abraham, but still he was the believer. Then we go to Jacob, bloodline, yes, but not Esau, who was the firstborn, but Jacob, the secondborn, because he had interest in learning about God. And he went to Shem to study with Shem, the priest of Melchizedek. He was willing to become a Melchizedek, or a representative of Melchizedek himself. He was preaching Melchizedek to his sons, and one of them was interested, maybe two, Jacob and Benjamin. They were interested in becoming also these representations of Melchizedek. The rest, they continued to do their own stuff. That's why they almost killed Joseph. Yeah, they were not that spiritual, let's put it that way. And they were, of course, jealous because Joseph had the dreams. In other words, he was spiritual. Yeah, well, that's how people are, right? They're always jealous but they're the ones that are not following God and make up their own religion. This is what the Jews still do today. They're absolutely going the wrong way. And these Christians, the so-called Christians, that think, that the Jews are still God's people, are wrong. They're absolutely wrong. Who are God's people? God's people are those that are following Messiah, no matter when, whether it's before Jesus came or after. In the Old Testament, this is exactly what these priests of God, Melchizedek's, preached. They were only representatives of the God from high. They were representatives of Melchizedek, the true king of righteousness. They preached that Messiah would come. What happened then in Egypt? All of a sudden, that Melchizedek didn't exist anymore. That priest didn't exist anymore. That priestly line didn't exist anymore. We don't hear of anybody giving the blessing to somebody else. We know that it ended with Ephraim. And after Ephraim, who got the blessing? It's gone. Did they really just totally or really forget about many things in Egypt? Why? Because they learned to follow the gods of the Egyptians. Oh, they did very well in Egypt. Even, they had some slavery, but afterwards they still complained and said, "Oh, we did better in Egypt than here in the wilderness." So it must have not been that horribly bad for them. Of course, we see that in movies, right? How bad it was, but maybe it wasn't that bad. They were still doing okay. I wanted to go back. And they even brought their gods, right? First thing they did when Moses went up to get the 10 Commandments, they built themselves a calf and celebrated. And even Aaron went along with it. Idiot. I mean, how can Aaron be so dumb? How can he be so dumb? But hey, they did it. So they must have forgot even then about Messiah. Now Moses did know about Messiah, and all the prophets prophesied about him, but I think most people just fell away. That's why they went into Babylonian captivity. The other ones, Israel, the kingdom of Israel was lost, or is lost still. They never went back. They mixed under, the Gentiles. Because what was the most important thing? That Messiah would come. And there was always a remnant that knew about that. A small, small remnant that would wait for Messiah to come. And when Jesus came, there was the small remnant that waited for Messiah. But the masses, they didn't care. Just like today. The masses will never care. And I'm talking about the masses of Jews or Gentiles, it doesn't matter. And so what we have today with the Jews is that they're lost. They're lost. They don't even understand really what's going on. They don't understand that the Levitical priesthood is not needed anymore. That the temple is not needed because Jesus is building the true temple with living stones. So we have Jews that are going astray. We have so-called Christians. Most of the so-called Christians are going astray. Most churches are lost. They're lost. They don't understand really the plan of God. Or else they would not support the state of Israel. They would not support it. They would point out to the Jews, hey, here you are wrong. Here is Jesus, the true high priest, the true king. He is the true king. That's what they would point out. But see, these false Christians, they're saying, oh, the Jews are going to someday, they get some time when they can accept Christ. They will not. They will not. The more they're stuck in darkness, the harder it is for them to come out. That's the big problem. And all we can do is pray that their eyes will be opened. And of course, we're not going to do that when we're not realizing that the system, the old covenant is over. People understand the old covenant is over. We're now under the new covenant, and the same with the Jews. They know it. The Old Testament preaches it. The prophets preach it. It's over. The Old Testament doesn't exist anymore. It's blasphemy when they started. I'm coming to an end. This was a very important video I had to add. I hope you thought that this topic was important, and it is important. It is very important. Again, another fact that we need to know about even today's Israel, that it's fake, that it's not of God. We are waiting for our king and our high priest, according to the order of Melchizedek. That's who we're waiting for. That is the kingdom we're waiting for, not the greater Israel kingdom. Greater Israel is wrong, and it is planned by Satan. In Israel, the Jews are only being used, which is pretty sad. It's very sad. And they need to wake up. Somebody needs to wake them up and say, wait a minute, you guys are just used. You're just used. Why are you, sacrificing your sons and daughters? Why? Are you offering them to Moloch? Is that what you're doing? You're offering them to Moloch, Baal? You let them go through the fire? Yeah, literally, through the fire. Are they still doing that? You think about it, it's pretty terrible. And I know a lot of Jews are leaving Israel right now. I heard about that as well. And rightly so. I'm glad they're doing it. For whatever it is, whatever reason it is, they need to leave Israel, because if not, their sons and daughters will be sacrificed. And if we're not careful here in the United States, our sons and daughters, at least our sons, but maybe the daughters too, will be sacrificed, and they will go through the fire of Baal or Moloch, whatever you want to call it. Coming to an end, let the Holy Spirit guide you always.